In this exploration, we're going to look at chemical energy. Chemical energy is very important for living organisms. When you think about chemical energy, I want you to think about any type of energy that can be stored. Okay, so with living organisms, the type of energy that's stored is the food that you eat. Right? There's other types of chemical energy, like a battery is a form of chemical energy. Gas that you put in your car is a form of chemical energy because it's energy that's stored that can be transported and then ultimately released. But for your cells, the type of chemical energy that we're going to talk about is a molecule called ATP. All right, so let's talk about ATP. When your cells need energy to perform their jobs, they are going to find a molecule called adenosine triphosphate. Now, we shorten that down to ATP. All right, now ATP is created in a reaction called cellular respiration. We're going to talk about cellular respiration in our next unit. But it is what happens in your mitochondria. If you think back to Unit 1, mitochondria is where we produce energy for the cell. This is the organelle that performs cellular respiration to unlock the energy in the food that we eat and ultimately turn it into ATP. All right. Now, this process is something that's very, very important for all living organisms, not just animals. Plants are going to use ATP as well. But here you can kind of see the transition that we're going to look at when we get to our next unit, where we are living organisms that breathe in oxygen, we eat food, our bodies then break that food into heat and energy, ATP, and we release carbon dioxide and water. Now this is going to be a central idea, again, in our next unit, so we'll talk more about that later. All right. Here is a picture of what an ATP molecule actually looks like. There's 3 parts to it. The first part is this adenine structure right here, okay? The second part is this ribose structure, which is just another name for a sugar. And then the major part that we're going to focus on are these 3 phosphate groups. That's where we get the triphosphate, because there's 3 of them. All right, now ATP is kind of like a battery in that when it is charged up, there are 3 of these phosphate groups attached. It's almost like when you look at your cell phone and you see the battery life, you might have different bars, right? You might have 2 bars or 3 bars. In this case, in order for us to be charged up, we have to have 3 bars of phosphate groups. And they're connected like this. We'll talk later about how when ATP is used, what happens is that your cell breaks off one of these phosphate groups. And when that happens, the energy that is stored in this portion of the molecule is released and can be used by the cell. All right, so again, ATP is generated through cellular respiration. The energy can be released to power processes in the cell. And this is kind of what that process looks like. Again, when we charge this molecule up, there are 3 phosphate groups. When we use the energy inside, what we're doing is we're breaking off one of those phosphates, releasing the energy, and then that ADP, which stands for adenosine diphosphate, because now we only have 2, needs to be recharged. So it's kind of like your cell phone battery that you can use it and it goes down, but then you can charge it right back up. That's what ADP is, basically a battery that needs to be recharged. And again, that process happens through cellular respiration. All right, now in our food, we can look at where that ATP is found. Now, carbohydrates are definitely one of the molecules that can store energy. Most of the time, carbohydrates provide our quick energy storage. If you need energy immediately, you can go to carbohydrates. This is why when people talk about a sugar high, right? When you eat sugar, those are very, very simple carbohydrates that your body can break down very quickly. They give you energy for a second, but then they are burned up rapidly and they are gone. So because of that, your body really doesn't depend on long-term storage in carbohydrate form. What they actually do is your body actually stores ATP in more dense long-term places like fat. This is why the recommendations for a healthy diet have changed. People used to think we needed lots of carbs because carbs give us energy, but what we actually found was When your body has leftover carbs that it doesn't need, in other words, when you have more food than you need energy for, then your body converts those carbs into fat because fat can provide that long-term storage. So once again, that's not always ideal. A little bit of fat is important. In fact, fats are very, very crucial for everything that we do. But in terms of long-term storage, we don't need excess amounts of fat because that's not healthy.